This will shock you. In 1938, on a tiny windswept island off the coast of Scotland, a Church of Scotland minister named George MacLeod stood amid the crumbling stones of a medieval abbey and saw not just decay, but possibility. While the Great Depression ravaged Glasgow's shipyards, leaving thousands unemployed and spiritually disconnected from the church, MacLeod envisioned something radical, bringing trainee ministers and unemployed craftsmen together to rebuild not just ancient walls, but broken lives and communities. What began with 12 people restoring a monastery would ignite a spiritual movement that would span continents and help birth the modern Celtic Christian revival, proving that God can use rubble and ruin to rebuild both buildings and souls. George Fielding MacLeod was born into a wealthy family in Glasgow, Scotland, on June 17, 1895. He was educated at Winchester and Oxford before serving 4 years as a frontline fighter in the trenches of World War I. He was captain of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders and saw action in Ypres and Passchendaele. MacLeod saw firsthand the immense violence and destruction of the war, which changed his view of the world and pushed him to pursue training in ministry. After the war, MacLeod studied at the University of Edinburgh, then studied for 1 year at Union Theological Seminary in New York City. When he returned to Scotland, he was invited to become an assistant at St. Giles Cathedral. In 1930, MacLeod became parish minister of Govan Old Church in Glasgow, an area characterized by dense urban poverty and a working-class population largely disconnected from institutional religion. Please subscribe to watch more of this. MacLeod's ministry in Govan brought him face to face with great hardship. An encounter with a dying man, who criticized the church for not meaning what it preached, made him realize the need for ministers to be more involved with life in their own parishes. MacLeod perceived that joblessness not only inflicted material suffering, but also fostered a spiritual disconnection, as the church appeared irrelevant to the concrete struggles of the unemployed. He became convinced that the wide gap between theology and actual life should be closed, and that, as in the ancient Celtic Church of St. Columba, the Irish missionary who established a monastery on the island of Iona, the spiritual and the material should be intertwined. In 1938, MacLeod established the Iona community as an ecumenical Christian community working for peace and social justice. Backed by prominent figures, including 5 former moderators of the Church of Scotland General Assembly and 4 professors, the initiative sought to revive Christian witness amid industrial-era challenges. He took a group of ministers and working men to Iona to rebuild the ruined medieval Iona Abbey together. The pitiful condition of many of the ancient buildings on Iona offered MacLeod and his 7 comrades an opportunity to show something of the spirit that had impelled Columba and his 12 followers. More than 1,300 years earlier, young ministers were to work closely with builders and craftsmen in the gradual restoration of the buildings of the abbey. This approach deliberately paired clerical trainees with industrial workers, fostering a practical demonstration of MacLeod's conviction that Christian faith required reconciliation between intellectual ministry and physical toil. This act of physical reconstruction was intended as a tangible symbol of the restoration of community and hope in a society grappling with poverty and unemployment. MacLeod's inspiration for this initiative was deeply rooted in the example of the early Celtic saints, whose environmentally conscious worldview and emphasis on finding God in the everyday resonated with his vision. Please subscribe to watch more of this. The reconstruction efforts in the late 1940s and 1950s focused on restoring the abbey domestic buildings, cloister, refectory, and living accommodations using salvaged stone and traditional methods, funded through donations. In 1959, when the cloisters, the sanctuary, and the sacristy were finished, the abbey was consecrated. Publicity and donations turned the community into an international success. The community which grew out of this was initially under the supervision of an Iona Community Board reporting to the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, but later the formal links were loosened to allow the community more scope for ecumenical involvement. The Iona community applied a simple monastic rule of prayer-centered life to its daily routine and became one of the most innovative and progressive spiritual movements in the Christian church. The community runs residential centers on Iona and Mull, where weeks often follow a program related to the concerns of the Iona community, and people are invited to come and share the life. A regular feature is a pilgrimage around the island which includes meditations on discipleship. The community has its own ecumenical liturgy, which is used daily in the abbey and elsewhere. The Iona community has a long-standing interest in liturgical renewal, and its prayers, hymns, and songs have been reprinted widely, playing a major role in the revival of interest in Celtic spirituality. Their publishing group, Wild Goose Publications, produces books on social justice, political and peace issues, holistic spirituality, healing, and innovative approaches to worship. The community maintains an active presence on Iona, leading regular worship services and retreat programs. About 100 people live on Iona year-round, and thousands more visit the island each year. George MacLeod stands as the key figure in the revival of the Iona community. His vision to rebuild the abbey and create a community that actively engaged with social issues inspired by the principles of the early Celtic saints breathed new life into the ancient site and established a model for a socially conscious church. MacLeod's leadership and prophetic voice were instrumental in shaping the Iona community's commitment to bridging the perceived gap between the church and the marginalized, actively working for justice and peace in both local and global contexts. MacLeod was awarded the Templeton Prize in 1989 for his work and efforts with the Iona community. When MacLeod died in 1991 at age 96, he left behind a religious center with worldwide connections. The modern revival of Iona that he initiated has influenced countless other communities and movements seeking to reconnect with Celtic Christian spirituality. The Iona community became a catalyst for a broader Celtic Christian revival that spread throughout Britain, Ireland, and eventually around the world. The story of George MacLeod and the Celtic revival teaches us that God can use the most unlikely combinations to accomplish his purposes. Unemployed shipbuilders and theology students, working side by side rebuilding medieval ruins, became the catalyst for a spiritual renewal movement that would influence millions. MacLeod proved that authentic Christian faith must integrate worship with social justice, prayer with practical action, and spiritual formation with manual labor. His vision demonstrated that the ancient Celtic emphasis on finding God in everyday life, honoring creation, and building genuine community remains powerfully relevant in the modern world. The ruins of Iona Abbey, once a symbol of decay, became a sign of hope that what is broken can be rebuilt, what is lost can be recovered, and what is ancient can speak prophetically to contemporary needs. Please subscribe and share for more of this.